So today we talk Widows, directed by Steve McQueen of 12 Years a Slave and written by Gillian Flynn from Gone Girl. Now, knowing that both of these two are involved, you kind of get the sense of what kind of a film it's going to be, and just to throw it out there right now, it does not disappoint one bit. It is a fantastic movie that tells a really compelling story following a group of cast that are a filmmaker's wet dream. Viola Davis, Michelle Rodriguez, Elizabeth Debicki, Colin Farrell, Daniel Kaluuya, Robert Duvall, Brian Tyree Henry, Liam Neeson. It goes on and on and on, and they do not disappoint one bit. There is so much to like about this film. I'm going to break it down a little bit just to kind of get the sense of what I was thinking and what I was feeling when I was watching the film. There are a few things that were a little disappointing, and I'll come on to those later on, but what I want to do is just break down the film in terms of cast, in terms of story, and then kind of go on to bits that I didn't necessarily enjoy. So story-wise, the film starts off with a heist gone wrong, led by Liam Neeson's character. What ends up happening is the people within this heist all end up dying, and as a result they leave behind their widows, the title of the film. And they're played by Viola Davis, Michelle Rodriguez and Elizabeth Debicki. It follows the story of Liam Neeson's character owing a lot of money to the character played by Brian Tyree Henry. So he owes him $2 million, and during the heist, obviously with him dying, he then approaches Viola Davis, who plays Liam Neeson's widow, and basically gives her a month to come up with the goods. And he does it in a very threatening way, i.e. if you don't give me what I want, you're going to die, essentially. This prompts Viola Davis to recruit Michelle Rodriguez, Elizabeth Debicki, in looking to basically pull off a heist in order to be able to retrieve this money. And she does that by looking at a little book that Liam Neeson left behind, basically outlining all of his past heists, anything that happened in the heist and any current heist going along. So the story follows that premise of them understanding what they need to do to perform this heist and how they're dealing with the current loss of their husbands as well. So that's the kind of main plot. There is a subplot within it that follows Colin Farrell and Brian Tyree Henry. Of a political standpoint, Colin Farrell plays a politician who is looking to gain votes in the local election, and it's been running in his family for quite some time, and his father, played by Robert Duvall, was the previous person in government at the time, and he's looking to kind of take over for his father. So that follows him and Brian Tyree Henry, who plays his opposition within the polls, who also is the main, if you want to call it, villain of the film, or the main antagonist of the film, as he is also very corrupt, and his brother, played by Daniel Kaluuya, does his dirty work, should we say. He does all his gangster type stuff, his shaking down of people, his getting rid of people, whilst he can focus on the more political standpoint. So that's the kind of main plot to the story. There are a couple of twists and turns in there that I'll get to at the end, because that's a little source of frustration for me about the film. However, the characters within the film are all incredible. You could say some elements of them are overacted a tad. However, the way that they have portrayed their characters, specifically the widows of the film, so Viola Davis, Michelle Rodriguez and Elizabeth Debicki, are incredible in this film. The way that they portray their characters is so genuine, it's so raw and so real that they come across extremely well. In particular, Elizabeth Debicki, I thought her character was fantastic. So she plays a character that when her husband was alive, he would beat her. So she's currently in the space of, I'm mourning the loss of my husband, however we weren't in a healthy relationship, and it's almost kind of, as well as she's mourning the loss of her husband, it's almost a relief to her that he's gone, which allows her character to handle the loss of her husband very differently to that of Viola Davis and Michelle Rodriguez, and that makes for some entertaining screen time, and it allows her to flourish as an actress as well. She's absolutely fantastic in this film. I want to shout out Michelle Rodriguez in this film as well. We're used to Michelle Rodriguez being the big bad tough karate chop on legs really with the Fast and Furious franchise that we're so used to seeing her in. However, in this she plays an extremely vulnerable person, and it's really really refreshing to see her in a role that is so different to the roles that we're used to seeing her in, and I would love to see more of it. I think that she's a breath of fresh air in this film as opposed to what you're used to, and I think that she's wonderful in this film. Viola Davis is a powerhouse in this film, as she is in the majority of the films that she is in, and by the way, she is hench. She is massive. Where the hell did that come from? She is huge. She's fantastic in this film in terms of raw and cutting deep and dealing with loss from a real gut-wrenching feeling. You get that in abundance from Viola Davis, and she acts it extremely well, but she also has unrelenting conviction of a leader in this, because she has to, because otherwise she is essentially going to be the next victim really. The way that she adapts to the I now need to be the leader of this group and lead them down into a heist to gain back this money, while she's dealing with the loss of her husband, they were in a very physical, very loving, very committed relationship, to be stripped away from that and then put in this position. The two parallels of what she's dealing with are portrayed incredibly, in my opinion, by Viola Davis, and she gives another knockout performance. Daniel Kaluuya, where did he come from? I mean, where did he come from? The last thing that I saw him in was in Black Panther, which was great. He was also fantastic in Get Out. He is a completely different character in this. He plays the brother of Brian Tyree Henry, and as I said before, does his gangster work, does his dirty work, and he's nothing short of evil in this film. His presence is so menacing, but he does it in a way that is likeable. You actually kind of like the character, even though that he's a straight up monster. The things that this guy does and things that this guy has done, it's pure evil. I mean, like, to the point of, and I won't spoil anything, but toying with people before he ends up doing the business. So that's the kind of character, and he molds to that character extremely well, and it's very strange seeing him in a role like this when you see him in things like Get Out, when, you know, it's a very different kind of film, but he plays very much the good guy, and in this he's very much the opposite, but he gels to the role extremely well. He portrays it extremely well, and the end result is something that it's quite incredible really. To see him be the character that he is fantastic, and I can't praise him enough. So Colin Farrell is, I don't think Colin Farrell gets enough recognition, in my opinion. I think Colin Farrell is one of the top actors that you can always expect really good work from Colin Farrell. He's in one of my favourite films, Phone Booth. It's something that I've always loved, and it's something that I'll continue to love, and the reason for that is simply Colin Farrell. I think he injects a level of personality into his roles that very few people can do, and that is very, very clear in this film as well. He plays, like I said, he plays a politician who's currently running for election, currently losing in the election, and how he's dealing with that, but also dealing with his racist father, who is very set in his ways and doesn't really move with the times, and how he deals with that along his path and his journey into this political side of the film that we see. And again, makes a fantastic viewing. He portrays the character really well, and you get really invested with him within the film as well. Another thing that I thought was incredible, nothing short of incredible actually, about this film was the cinematography. I think that the only way that I can describe the cinematography in this film is gorgeous. There are certain shots, certain takes in it that you can't help but notice, and I think that adds an element to the film, whereby you're not just focusing on what's happening in the film, you're focusing on the way that it's shot, and in some moments it's just breathtakingly fantastic. There's some really long shots, some really wide shots, but there's also a particular scene in the film, and I won't go into too much detail again because I don't want to spoil it. However, it's a one-take scene in the film that follows Colin Farrell after he's just been at a political rally of some sort. He gets into a car and the camera is placed on the bonnet of the car looking into the car, but the car's got kind of like tinted windows, so you can't see what's going on inside of it. All you can hear is Colin Farrell and his assistant talking on the inside, but as they're talking, the camera pans from one side of the car when you're looking at the slums, or the I would say slums of Chicago, and it follows the car, and it moves ever so slightly all the way through the scene, but it's filmed in one shot, and it moves ever so slightly all the way round to the car journey, and this car journey is only a couple of minutes, and it follows from the rally where he was up to his house, his home of operations where he is, and whilst that's doing that, the camera's panning across the entire way, but it's done in such a way where it shows the disparity between the slums of Chicago and literally a couple of streets away is the rich high life society. And I think it's a lovely little scene that kind of shows just the stark difference between the two, so close together, and it blends the scene really nicely into the next scene as well. And I think it's a fantastically shot piece of cinema, really, and that more than anything stands out to me in terms of the cinematography. It's just a fantastic scene to not only observe as part of the film, but just observe as part of filmmaking. I think Steve McQueen really hits the nail on the head with some of his shots and some of the way that he directs the flow of the film. I think it's lovely and it's gorgeous to watch. Okay, so in terms of some of the things that I didn't like, there is a glaring plot hole that I think that is within this film that unfortunately it's hard to ignore. There is and again, I'm not going into spoiler territory here because I really think that people should go out and see this for themselves. One, because it's a great movie, but two, just to kind of see if you agree with me or not. But I believe there's a glaring plot hole whereby there is a bit of a twist in the story. I would say mainly part of the way through the film, maybe halfway through, that leads onto a reveal at the end of the film. But the problem is, because you see the twist halfway through the film, the reveal almost falls flat on its face. It doesn't really add for much drama as I think that it intended to. When you see a reveal of this nature, you're supposed to kind of go but you don't, and that's not the plot hole that I find that is glaring, but it leads into it. But again, it causes a sense of frustration for me because I don't feel that added the weight that it was looking for. The plot hole that I'm referring to is in that particular scene, in that particular character, the motives for why they are doing what they're doing at the time that they are doing it. Told you there was no spoilers in this one. Why they're doing what they're doing doesn't really make sense, and it never really gets explained to you why they are doing what they are doing, and you almost kind of have to piece a puzzle together, and I'm not quite sure that I managed to do it. I've spoken to a few people about it and they say, oh, I think it might be this, or I think it might be this. I've never had two people say the same thing. Which again, when you're leading into a reveal and the ending of a film and you want to kind of come to a conclusion or a closure of the film, when you leave almost scratching your head, it almost kind of it taints it a little bit. It leaves a bit of a sour taste in your mouth because the rest of the film is so good. That one thing is really frustrating or annoying, really. You want to try to ignore it, but because it's so glaringly obvious and because it is where it is in the film and it involves who it involves in the film, you can't really ignore it. Apart from that, I don't really have any other negatives about this film. I think it was great. Like I said, it's one of those that I genuinely believe is going to be held in high esteem from anyone that watches it. I will say that if you're looking for an out-and-out action film, this is not the film that you want to go see. I have seen a few people that said that they believe that the marketing for the film is a little bit misleading. They were expecting something different because of who wrote it, because of who directed it. I kind of got the feeling it wasn't going to be like that, simply because of what they've done. So if you're looking for an out-and-out action film, this is not the film that you should be expecting or you're going to see. If you're looking for a film that has got fantastic acting, it's got a great story, it's got unbelievable cinematography, this is the kind of film that you want to see. That's not to say that there isn't action in this film. I mean, there is a heist in this film. There are action scenes within the film that contain shootouts. So it's not without its action, but it's not action-packed, and I would say that if that's what you're expecting from the film, don't expect much from it. I would highly recommend this film to most people. So that's Widows. Let us know what you thought of the film. Did you find the frustration that I found with the plot hole, or am I looking too much into it? Let us know in the comment section below. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. We've got some great reviews coming up in the future. Don't miss out on it. See you later, guys.